I'd like to help you get started with your curriculum updates because this summer we need to update our key assessments and our syllabi to reflect the fact that we are now using a new graduate master InTASC Kentucky Teacher Performance Standards rubric. So there are several steps in the updates that you're asked to do. So I wanted to walk you through each of those steps so that you felt comfortable and were very clear on what each one required. So what I'm showing here now is the faculty instruction list, but it's got lots of boxes. So I want to focus right now just on this first box so that you're very comfortable with what that expectation is. Based upon this summer work chart that I sent you, you will see and know which key assessments and which cover sheets, which syllabi I'm asking you to update. So if you have questions about that, or you are not sure what they refer to, or you need some assistance with knowing which assessments you've been assigned, please let me know. I'll be happy to follow up with you on that. Okay, so, sorry about that. Let me go back to the guideline here. Okay, so on your guideline sheet, first of all, what I recommend for an existing key assessment that you work on the rubric first, okay? So you'll pull up the assessment that you have, and I'm going to demonstrate for you with one of the courses that that I originally designed a key assessment for, so I can kind of walk you through the process. So pull up the cover sheet for that particular assessment, and right now you're not really worrying about any of this cover sheet part. We'll come back to that as we update it. We'll come back to that because we'll have some changes to make there. But for right now, the first thing I want you to do is to look at the scoring guide, the rubric itself. Now, in this particular rubric, because of regulations from EPSB, we also have a section of ILA standards. So I'm going to scroll right down here, all the way down to the Kentucky Teacher Standards. So most of your rubrics are going to be completely built around the Kentucky Teacher Standards, and you won't have a separate section for your SPA standards. You might, and there are some disciplines or some areas that will have to do that. Literacy is one of those, but some of you do not. So we want to start here with our Kentucky Teacher Standards. So what I recommend that you do is read through your Kentucky Teacher Standards, and so that you see which standards or what content you're really focusing on with those Kentucky Teacher Standards. And then you're going to pull up that graduate InTASC rubric, which I've also sent to you, and you're going to see what fits where, okay? So you'll notice that it's not going to be a one-to-one match. So when I actually did this process for this particular example, I had 4 fewer rows on my new rubric because there are fewer rows on the master graduate rubric. So you may end up with fewer rows than what you start with. It's not going to be a one-to-one match. So some of what you have in your current key assessment rubric may be collapsed or consolidated into fewer rows, which is good. So, so then become familiar with the graduate program. So you'll see that the indicators are based upon the standards. So indicator 1.1 and 1.2, those all have to do with learning differences, because that's the first, learning development, because that's the first InTASC standard. So as you go through the rubric, you'll see that each one is related to the corresponding InTASC standard. So knowing that, after you have reviewed the existing rubric on the key assessment along with the new graduate rubric, you're going to go back then to your key assessment document, the cover sheet document, and then you're going to start switching out the rows. So this one, for example, talks about the professional growth plan, and so I know, having reviewed the graduate rubric, I know that Standard 9 really is where the professional development information is located. So when I go back and look at how to match up and how to make sure that I'm relaying the same content as in the existing rubric, I have found this one that relates to the education professional reflecting on his or her own professional growth, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this right across here, copy it, and I'm going to head back into my original document and paste it in. Okay? I'm going to follow that process through the entire rubric until I get this rubric updated. Okay? Now, something to keep in mind, I'll go back here to this little page, that switching over and matching up to the rubric from the cover sheet, that's your first step. For an existing key assessment that needs to be updated, it makes sense to work on that rubric first. Now keep in mind, for those of you who are working on advanced program or advanced degree key assessments, we still have those cross-cutting theme rows that deal with technology and diversity. Those should already be on your rubrics. If you are developing a new one, you'll need to include these at the end of your rubric because we have those cross-cutting themes identified that way. But these have not changed from our previous rubric to now. So make sure that those are included if you're working on an advanced program, an advanced degree rubric. Okay, so when all that's said and done, then your new rubric will it will be linked to the Kentucky Teacher Performance Standards and InTASC instead of to the Kentucky Teacher Standards. So like I said, in this one that I have just updated for this particular class, I now have 4 fewer rows because there are fewer InTASC rows than there were for the Kentucky Teacher Standards. So hopefully this is helpful information, and you'll be able to get your rubric updated pretty easily.